I am with Rayman Boozer. He's the principal designer of Apartment 48. Apartment 48 has been featured in Architectural Digest, House Beautiful, and New York Magazine, and is a member of the AD 100 and Elle Decor A-List, recognizing top designers in the world. So, Raymond, you've often been dubbed the king of color. How did you get to a place where you began to lead your work with color as your design point of view?
Um, I'd say my work has always incorporated color. I had a shop for 18 years, and every 4 months I would transform it and paint the walls different colors. And I think that's why people noticed me, because I would experiment with really bright colors in the store. And then I'd change up all the merchandise to go with it and have like a different theme. So I was telling different stories in this like apartment kind of environment. I was doing that, like I said, for 18 years, but at some point, one of my customers was friends with somebody at Time Out Magazine, and they wanted to do a story on color. So they came to me and they asked me to do some color consulting, and I did it for the editor of the story. And she wrote an article about how I decorated her apartment, and it just kind of blew up. And after that, people all over the city were calling me to do color consulting, and I was running around picking out paint colors for people, you know, and they're painting their places the colors I said, and it was like all over the place. I mean, sometimes it was super bright. I had one person ask me to pick out white. Only one person out of like probably like hundreds asked me to choose a white for their apartment, and I did it.
Well, that's amazing. So when people reach out to you for design, they know they're going to get color.
They know they're going to get color, and people reach out to us because they want to be pushed into color direction.
That's
I
great.
think people like color, but they don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of practice and experimentation. I've made a lot of mistakes with color in the past. Once I painted my kitchen lime green, and I knew it instantly it was a mistake, because I
Okay,
painted the
that is
ceiling and
just
the
paint.
walls. Yeah, it was just not the right color for that room. But, through my mistakes, I've learned what to do and what not to do,
Wow,
you
that's
know.
fantastic. And it's true. A lot of people are just too afraid that people will do gray, they'll do beige, they'll do, really muted colors. So to
Yeah.
have that guidance and they trust you, you've been dubbed the king of color. So they go to you to take the leap.
Yeah, it's true. And I think the main reason people hire interior designers is because they don't want to make a mistake. People don't like to be wrong about things, and so they want to trust somebody else to make those choices. And sometimes it's hard to push people in the direction of color, and people come to me for that. They do
That's
tend to trust me.
that's good advice. That's true. There a lot of people are afraid. So that's why interior designers do what they do because people put their trust in us. That's amazing. So I read an article in AD and it said that your hometown state is Alabama and Indiana. And so I wondered how your hometown states of Alabama and Indiana have shaped and influenced you as a designer.
I think it's impossible not to be shaped by your history.
Mhm.
I was born in Alabama, but I grew up in Indiana. So I was born into a segregated society, and I think I was greatly influenced by that. I mean, there was no wealth,
Mhm.
Definitely it was a very simple life, and it's also a very restricted life, but I lived there until I was like 6 years old, and then I moved to Indiana. That was a lot more open, but at the same time not super progressive. So I grew up in a society where I was repressing my identity and being repressed by society up until the time I was like 17, and I went to college, and then I moved to New York when I was like 21. So I think that shaped who I am, because now I can be really free about who I am. I can be really free with color. I can experiment with things where I don't think, well, I don't have to say I don't think. I know I wasn't allowed to do the stuff back in Indiana. And in Alabama, if I were old enough, I wouldn't be able to even probably work in this business, maybe now in 2023, but back then it was impossible. There were just no jobs. It's when my parents moved, there are no opportunities for Black people in the
Yeah.
South at that time.
When did you move to New York? So after college, or
Yeah,
you went?
right after
Okay.
college, 4 days after graduation, I moved to New York. And I thought, I was really a big deal in college because I was the one person who kind of got interior design like right away. Like, it's so funny because I went to Indiana University. IU is a great school, but they didn't have a really strong interior design department at the time. But I don't know. I took it as like a lark, and it just clicked with me. I was like, wow, this is what I should be doing. I understood proportions, I understood color, I understood scale, and everybody thought you'll do really well in New York. And I came here and it was really hard to get a job. It was really hard, you know.
Well,
So I
that's
was,
scary at 21 too, to go to New York. I mean, you knew that was your passion, so you took that leap. But that's
yeah, I also
really
felt like I
special.
didn't have a choice. I mean,
Yeah,
Indiana wasn't a good fit for me, so I didn't really belong there. So everybody says, I was brave to come here, but I felt like I didn't really have a choice. I had to do something, big, and I needed to be in a city. And New York is perfect for me. I mean, I've been here for a long time now, and I love it. I love New York.
just from what you said you came to New York and you couldn't get a job. I mean, ultimately, you did, but how did that work out for you? And what was the transition? Like, how did you get to opening Apartment 48? Is that
Well,
what?
I think what happened is, well, my first job was at Bloomingdale selling underwear. So I did
Yeah,
that for about a year.
that's
And
great.
I just kept going from job to job. I worked in different creative retail jobs
Mhm.
because, I had a college degree, but I didn't have like an Ivy League degree.
Yeah,
And I didn't have any family connections. And so I wasn't getting a lot of opportunities. I was going on interviews, but I wasn't getting chances. And my big dream was to work for Ralph Lauren. And eventually I got an interview with Ralph Lauren and they offered me a job, but it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to create a job and they wanted me to do something, in operations. And I was just like, no. And that was the day that I decided I'm going to do my own thing.
that's right.
And I said, I'm going to open my own store. And I started telling people, and I had like no money. I was like, I'm going to do this. And I made up my mind. I remember I was sitting in my apartment and I just thought about it. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a store and I'm going to show people that I know what I'm talking about. And I did it. I just started slowly looking for locations. I had no idea how much a store would cost. I had no idea anything about inventory or where to get stuff. I was just like, I was young and I was just like, I'm going to do this. And I did it. It was very difficult, but I did it because once you make up your mind you're going to do something, you're going to make it happen.
That's
Just
right.
like when you don't want to do something, you're going to find a way to get out of it.
That's really good advice. And I think that in itself is so inspiring because we all, no matter how successful, I mean, you become, we all start someplace. So it's about
Yeah.
having
You have to
that,
start at the beginning,
yeah,
wherever that is.
it's about having the courage to just do it. If you're
Yeah.
truly passionate about something, don't be afraid. Think about, I mean, I think you will be afraid, but if you don't take that leap, then you're going to be stuck
Yeah.
not moving forward.
Yeah.
So it's great.
I
That's
was
inspiring.
afraid, but I wasn't afraid of failure because if I would fail, I'd be right where I was before, and I could
Yeah,
just get a job.
I hear that. I get that. Well, that's great. So I it is Black History Month, and so I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you. I've also reading about you in past articles. You've shared your journey from starting out as a designer and with the various obstacles that the community project onto one another.
Yeah.
What would you like to see more of in the design industry?
I think that in our society in general, in America especially, and maybe other places, there's a social bias against people,
Mhm.
and we judge people based on their appearance. And I think that Black people and other minorities have a harder time because they are being prejudged. And then people have to shift their perception of them once they get to know them instead of deciding that everybody has an equal chance. It's almost like it's subliminal, but because it's so ingrained in our society. It used to be like ingrained in the laws. You know, most of the laws are not like that now, but we're still like pushing against like laws that really restrict people and what they can do and what they can say. And even with gender, it's just people need to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think in this business, even still, I have to deal with like the subtle racism, like basically every time I go to a showroom or someplace, people make assumptions like whether you can pay for something or are you like a real person? Do you belong here? And a lot of times those things are, a lot of times are really subtle. And I think minorities see it more than other people. And other people, you're like, I can't believe what they said to me. And they're like, what are you talking about? I didn't see anything. So, you know what I mean? It
Yep.
happens like all the time.
Yep.
It's almost like you have to prove that you belong before you can just go do your job. And you just want to like go do your job. And it's like my friend Layden said recently, it's like you have two jobs. You have the job of being a designer and you have the job of being like a Black man in America. And it's exhausting. It's
Yep.
exhausting to have to always prove yourself and then like go ahead and then you can pick out a fabric. You know, it's it's something that we need to deal with, and I don't think it's going to go very, very easily. As long as you can point to somebody and say that they're different, it's not going to be an easy solution to this. I was talking with Young Ha yesterday. She has similar experiences too. People have preconceived ideas about Asian people, about Black people, about Latina people. It's just, it's frustrating, And I think also the other thing that people don't understand is that when you're not a minority, you have the privilege of not having to think about this. You know, that's what privilege is. It's like you don't have to say, oh, I have that extra job and I have to go outside now and prove to people that I belong there. And then I can do my real job of decorating their house, you know?
I mean, it's fantastic that you're speaking up about it and that you're breaking barriers. But I understand I'm a Latina as well, and I've dealt with different similar experiences to what you're saying. And
Right,
it could be, yes, I'm Hispanic, or it's simple things. Even over the phone, I sound young. I have a young voice.
right,
People's perception, or yes, because I'm Latina, I look younger, or I don't dress the part or whatever it is, but there is a perception
right.
initially. And so you're right in saying that you basically people have to get to know you a little bit in order to
Yeah,
trust you. Whereas if you
right.
look different, then that would be their initial, that wouldn't be there. They wouldn't even experience that. But you sort of have
It's
to prove
true.
yourself a little bit more. So I understand that.
It's true. And
Yeah.
also, once you've experienced it, then you're always on the lookout for it. And that makes it always feel like it's more prominent.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you talked about that because that's really relevant. And I also wanted to ask what in the design community as well, what are some ways that designers and clients and vendors can foster a more inclusive environment? I mean, I don't
Well,
know if there's, yeah.
I think because we do have this social bias that I'm speaking about, and like, you know, the critical race theory, that there's already like a preconceived notion about people that you have to set an intention to like intensely reach out to people of color and make sure that they feel like they're included, invite them to events, invite them to panels, and get them in front of people. So more and more people coming up in schools and colleges can see that there are people of color doing things. I think they have to be really intentional about it. I think that there have been a lot of changes in the past like 2 years, but we're in like 2023. It shouldn't be still happening, but I think that what happens is people like to do a lip service to these situations and they say, oh, we did that thing with that Black person. Now we can go back to our regular, programming. But it shouldn't be like that. It should be
Mhm.
everybody should be included all the time and everybody should be part of the whole story. And since it's not that way, we have to do it on purpose. We have to intentionally go to people and say, hey, we need more people of color here. So can you do this thing with us? And people do that to me. They're not always honest about why they're doing it, but of course I know why they're doing it.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I'm also qualified. I feel like I'm meant to be there, so I don't feel like I'm giving or getting anything for free. I feel like finally somebody's like, acknowledging that I can contribute something.
Yeah, that you're talented and that you do have something big to contribute. And I do
Yeah.
like what you said about going to colleges and, speaking maybe to young people because that's where it starts to give them
Yeah.
um, the courage or to give them the confidence, that, what, it's okay for me to do whatever I want, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah,
so
and you can
you have
do a
to lead
creative
by
job
example.
and it could be really lucrative at some point. This could be a really good business for somebody.
Yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of minorities don't think of design as like a good career move because people want to do banking or be a lawyer or something, or a doctor even, something that seems more lucrative, but it can be a really good business.
Mhm. Well, transitioning into this, I would like to ask you, what advice would you give to designers just beginning in their career?
I think the most important thing that I would tell people, because I've interviewed a lot of people from like design schools and stuff like that, I
Yeah.
think it's so important to get an education. And I think what a lot of the people lack when they come out of like design schools, even the best design schools like Parsons and New York School of Interior Design, is they don't know furniture history. They don't know art history. I think if you're going to set yourself apart in this business, you have to have some kind of culture. You should
Hmm.
be studying art. You should be studying furniture. You should be studying even science, because one thing people don't understand about interior design is that it's creative, but also it's a lot of scientific stuff. I always say there's a lot of math. So you really have to be an analytical person to understand like the rules of design. So it's a science and it's an art. And I think to be well studied is a way to set yourself apart. A lot of people call themselves interior designers and they just start doing things.
Yeah.
But I think even like me, I went to school, I already had a degree in, but I went to school at night to learn about advertising because I was curious about how to do a business and how to do more marketing and things like that. So just take like classes and things that you don't feel like you're strong on.
Oh, that's really good advice too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, even flower arranging. I mean, like the flower arranging thing,
Yeah.
it's so creative, but at the same time, there is science to that I didn't understand. And now that I know what you taught me, I use it all the time.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
always
so glad. That makes
reflecting.
me happy.
Yeah, always reflecting things.
Oh, thank you. So it's true though. I think when you're a creative soul, those things all sort of, it is sort of a science. Um I am an interior designer and studied as well. And I think my favorite class was art history. And
Yeah,
it is certainly helpful. And I think, you do have to have all of those things behind you along with the talent. I think this is all, and it's also a journey. I mean, you can't think that you're going to come right out of school
right.
and you're going to land this huge job with a big design firm or be, um, you know, automatically a successful designer. It takes time. I mean, what you've
It's
done
true.
over the years is, you've taken steps, big steps in starting your business, but you've also done your homework and you've progressed and you've evolved, right? And that's what we all do
Yeah.
as designers.
Yeah, and I never stop learning. Like every morning I wake up and I watch YouTube, I look at what other people are doing, I look at like documentaries, I watch movies. I'm always looking for inspiration. I'm always looking for new information to make me better at what I do. You never stop learning.
You never stop learning. That's true. That's very true. And I have one last question. What advice would you go back and give yourself as a young designer?
If I could go back and talk to myself, I would tell myself things that I know now, which is the way that you look at life is how your life will be.
Right
So you have to change the way you think about things if you want things to change. Because the universe, I read a book called The Alchemist years ago and it changed my life. The universe is always trying to help you. The universe wants you to be happy. The universe is always trying to give you what you want. But a lot of times we're just not open and we're not taking it in. So you have to really shift your thinking. For a long time, I saw myself as like, oh, everything is so hard and people are against me. But I'm like, I'm the only person here who's thinking that. Nobody else is here. And I should shift this thought process. And I did. As soon as I started to think differently, things got better for me because you don't get what you believe. I'm sorry, I said it backwards. You
now.
don't get what you want. You get what you
You
believe.
believe. That's really,
Yeah.
I was
If you
just
can make
talking,
yourself believe something, you can do it.
it's so
Like
true.
that's how my store happened, you know?
It really is. It's about your thought process. And,
Yeah.
it's funny that you say that because I was just having that conversation with a friend of mine a couple of days ago, and she sent me, she's been doing this sort of meditation every morning, and she sent me the link to it. But we were talking about, we're both in our 50s now, but talking about how you have to shift your thought process. It's so much
Right.
easier to be in the negative. It's so much easier to say, oh, how did
Yeah.
this happen to me? Or why is this happening to me? I'm trying so hard and nothing's working. But
Yeah.
that's why it's not working because you continue to speak to yourself that way. And it
It's
really is
true.
about shifting the way you speak to yourself. It's your own conversation. It's the words that you use. Your thoughts,
Yeah. How do you speak to yourself matters. It really
right?
does.
Exactly.
It really does. And the reason why it's easier to be negative is because most people are doing that. So it's just like kind of like the mentality of human nature now because
Yeah.
we've been doing it for such a long time that we think it's normal to feel bad. But there's no reason why you should feel bad. You know, you just have to really expect that things are going to work out and they will, you know?
Exactly. And if you have that, and that's really, really good advice as well, I think. If you continue to have that process, if you shift the way
Yeah.
that you speak to yourself, that conversation that you have with yourself, you'll see your intention is real, that your
Yeah.
intention will come to surface because once you speak truth to yourself, once you're more positive, that energy does happen. And I mean, I can see that in the last year and what I've been doing with myself as well.
Right.
shifted my thought pattern. I've been working on this, I started working on this thing since, my late 20s. So
Yeah.
it's been a process. Um, but, once you have an intention and you shift your conversation with yourself, you just start to see that you're right. The universe does start rewarding you
Right.
because you're doing, what you truly want to do
It's
instead of,
true.
yeah, it is. It's so true.
It's true. And the universe has been there all along trying to give you what you want, but you just haven't been open to
Exactly.
it. I've
Exactly.
learned that like so many of my dreams have come true in the past couple of years. It's just been like floodgates opening up, you know. There's all these great opportunities now,
Yeah.
but it's a constant thing. So every morning I meditate and I try to remind myself, that everything's happening for me, not to me.
That's perfect. And so I think that's a great way to, I guess, end this interview and good
Sure.
advice to say everything is happening for you, not
Yes.
to you.
Not to you, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
You?
Pardon me?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. This was really a lot more than I imagined. I think this is going to be a lot of, this is inspiring, not just for me, but it's going to be inspiring for so many others.
I hope
And
so.
your journey has been, I mean, like I've, it's hard for me when I went, not for me in general, but when I thought, okay, I'm going to interview Raymond Boozer. I know you as a person. He's just a
Right.
person, but he's so successful. So I think sometimes people will think it's unattainable, you're not approachable.
That's
But
hilarious.
it is. The takeaway is that we're all just, we're all people. We're all
We're
the
all
same.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
we're all
are.
the same, and we all have the same dreams. And so if you just go for it, ask and you shall receive. And
Yeah,
that's my big takeaway with this
true.
too.
It's true.
Well, thank you
Hope
so
people
much,
enjoy it.
Raymond. And I'm going to keep my eye out for you as I always do. I follow you and you make
I
me smile,
appreciate
and all
that.
your great experiences and everything you do, and your growth is amazing. And thank you very, very much for this. Mwah.
Thank you. Yeah. Take care.
Take care. I hope to see you soon.
Yeah. Bye
Bye,
bye.
Raymond. Thank you.